Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Avatar, the newest Magic set, is officially here. We're going to be taking a look at day one, some deck lists that are working out for people. There was a kind of broader internet outage today that impacted a lot of stuff. I think Untapped was impacted earlier in the day, so it's been a bit tricky trying to find stuff. It's also pretty early into the day, so this is really intended to give you an idea. There's one MTGO league that's somewhat wrapped up, so we have some 5-0s that we can look at, and then we'll look at some early Untapped data from like content creators, stuff like that, some decks that are working out. So by all means, this isn't supposed to be the best deck. The meta has not been broken like 6 hours in. It's to give you an idea, some stuff people are trying out. As always, if you're conservative with wildcards, wait a week or two just to see where the metagame settles before committing to it. Be mindful and weary of the early "this deck is broken" format solved videos, because they're going to burn you wildcards more often than not. Similarly, during early access, some of those deck lists look fun, but most people aren't playing heavy removal or like super refined lists, so things tend to look a little bit better in that case there. So all these deck lists will be in the video description. You can copy paste them in, try things out if you're interested. So make sure to, while you're there, to subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 20,000. We're like 150 away, so greatly appreciated if you can. So between now and the weekend, we'll give it a couple days. The weekend, I'll do deep dives into best of 1, best of 3. That'll give us a couple days worth of data, have stuff normalized, and then we'll be back to regular cadence weekly with all the formats and kind of seeing what's trending in that. Especially excited for Timeless as well, because we got a bunch of new cards there. Force of Negation and some other stuff. So looking into it, we had the first standard league, and there's 2 lists. There's a mono red list that's pretty much stock. We're seeing like Osier, Razorkin, Needlehead, Scalding Viper. So going back to the kind of replacing what's its name, Screaming Nemesis. So if you have mono red stuff, mono red's still pretty good. But then there's this list here, and because MTGO's website is super relevant in the year 2025, half the cards like Quantum Riddler already exists. Like, why is there no image for it? So give me a sec. We will pull it up into Arena so we can see. So this is a Simic list by, I'll get the name, DB Ruda. So DB Ruda is playing this list, and it is kind of a Simic Ramp big mana deck. So one of the new cards, Badger Mole Cub, 2 mana, 2/2. This is one of the more powerful cards in the set. This one's probably going to be a safe mythic craft just because it'll fit a lot of decks. So it's a 2 mana, 2/2. When it enters, it Earthbends 1, which means one of your lands gets animated and it gets a 1/1 counter on it. When it dies or gets put into exile, you return that land to the graveyard. So oftentimes these animate land effects come with the downside because your lands become susceptible to removal. This kind of plays around it. Then whenever you tap a creature for mana, you add an additional mana. So these lands tap for 2 mana. Things like Llanowar Elf, you have Intrepid, Paleontologist, Tender Wild Guide. These all tap for extra mana. So they basically become soul rings in a way, colored soul rings. Paleontologist also can exile graveyard stuff. Notably, it has a condition with like dinosaurs. There's no dinosaurs in the deck, unfortunately. Then you have kind of tempo elements. It'll quench ya, basically just a functional reprint of Quench. Then another new card, Wang Shi Tong Librarian. 2 mana X, flash flying 1/1, and then it enters with X1 counters. You draw half the cards around and down. So think of it almost as like a instant speed Hydroid Krasis. And then whenever opponent searches their library, you put a counter on it and then draw a card. During early access, I was actually messing around with this in Timeless in a Dimir shell. Opponent uses a fetch land or something to search their library, flash it in, draw a card, get some value. Quantum Riddlers, Meringue River Regents, and then a single copy of Craterhoof on the top end. Your sideboard, you got Dragon Sniper for the kind of creature mirrors. This just trades up favorably. Detect Intrusion, counters instant sorceries or triggered abilities. Keen-Eyed, more Graveyard Hate. Wear Down, Artifact Enchantment Hate. And Aetherize for the Swarm decks, things that are going in and kind of beating you down that way there. So switching back, we have from Doomwake content creator, they went 8-0'd this afternoon in best of 3. This is an update to Green-White Cage. So we see Badger Mole in here, just another card that it basically is useful because it gives you 2 bodies that work with Cage that are different powers. Also helps you ramp to cast your kind of top end stuff. The rest of the deck's pretty stock from what we're seeing in past ones. Some Sheltered by Ghosts, Sandstorm Salvager gives you multiple bodies, Elspeth, Mistmores. So with this one here, you're not playing like crazy big things. It's more just kind of value plays and then things that you can cast normally as well. Bright Glass lets you tutor for like removal, ramp, fight effects here. Nurturing Pixie could pick up your Gearhulk, for example. Paw Patch for is really good against like Dimir and stuff. Pixie Down is a reanimate effect for your Gearhulk. We have another land here. So the cycle of lands is actually pretty solid. I don't think you need more than 1 usually in the decks, but Abandoned Air Temple. This comes into play tapped unless you have a basic. And then for 4 mana, you put a counter on each creature you control. So for those playing for a while, Gavany Township is a card that it's very similar to. Sideboard's pretty much all old cards. Zurk for heavy removal decks, Artifact Enchantment Hate, Sweeper Hate, red-based kind of removal, or green-based, kind of like your creature mirrors. Heritage Reclamation, Artifact Enchantment, Graveyard Hate, Artifact Enchantment Hate, and can be ramp, Graveyard Hate, removal, and then Basilisk Collar and the creature mirrors helps you race. Elf Kicker, so this one here is 9-1, and it is a Bant combo deck. So a lot of cards in here, a lot of new cards. But how it basically works is Dock or Lock makes it so spells you cast from your graveyard or from exile cost 2 less. In this case, plotting doesn't really matter, but what you're trying to do is airbend. So things like Aang here comes in and you airbend up to 1 target creature or spell. So it's kind of like a spell queller. When you airbend, you exile it, and then you can cast that card for 2 mana. With Dock or Lock, it basically replaces it. So now it's 0 mana. And what you're basically doing is some combination of using Appa Steadfast Guardian, which airbends any number of permanents when it comes into play. When you cast a spell from exile, you create a 1/1 ally. And then Aang at the Crossroads. Apologize, I don't know why Untap's choosing to put this up. It's 5 mana, 2 in Bant. So when it comes into play, it's kind of like a collected company, but they get you 4 CMC or less, put it onto the battlefield. And then whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, you transform Aang at the beginning of your next upkeep. But basically what you're trying to do is a loop where Aang will come in and blink Appa, then you cast Appa, you blink Aang, and both your Aangs. And then you get to recast those over. This helps you just keep digging for more and more creatures. When you cast those cards from exile, you create 1/1s, and you're just basically doing a loop where you just keep casting and blinking back and forth. You eventually get Jill, and you can bounce all your opponent's creatures. You can also airbend Bramble Familiar, and then cast the fetch quest for free. So it kind of circumvents the casting cost. Momo in here makes it so your first flying creature that's non-lemur costs 1 less, and then whenever another creature you control flying enters, Momo gets +1/1 till end of turn. So you can basically make it infinitely large as well. The amount of times you cast, infinite tokens kind of deal. So that's kind of that there. Avatar's Wrath, choose up to 1 creature, then airbend all the other creatures until the end of your next turn. Opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands, so it's a good tempo element. Tashana for activated abilities, triggered abilities. Split up with Sweeper and Creature Mirrors. Sweepers, we have Aben Interrupter protect you, get lossless removal, and some cheap counters in there. This one is a best of 1 list, but it is another combo. So in Golgari colors, how it works is it's a new card in here, Beifong's Bounty Hunter, 4 mana, 4/4. So whenever a non-land creature you control dies, you Earthbend X, where X is that creature's power. So what you're doing is with a sack outlet, you need this. Bloodghast, you sack Bloodghast, and then you get to Earthbound a creature, one of your lands. You sack that land, it comes back into play as a land, which brings back Bloodghast, and you basically can loop that infinite. So you sack the Bloodghast, your land animates, you sack the land, Bloodghast comes back, and you kind of go over and over. With Iridescent Vine Slasher out, you ping your opponent to death. You can also drain them to death with Sephiroth as well. Then you can also gain infinite life with Dredger's Insight. So kind of that loop. The rest of the deck's just kind of setting up the combo. Again, just Badger Mole Cub in here as another utility card, just good mana. So I played this one in early access. There's a couple different ways you can build this kind of theme. We'll see a Boros version, but I went 7-2. I played this quite a bit on my iPad as well, kind of in between, just tweaking it as we went along. I have a video up on YouTube if you want to see this deck in action, where we go through some iterations of the deck itself. But it's kind of a take on mono red, and people are going to argue it's got green cards in it. We're casting it basically for Seek the Beast more often than not. It's like the Rakdos deck, Rakdos Leyline, or Rakdos Fling. You're casting for the Fling. So we have a new card here, and I don't know why it's deciding to go like this. Whenever they have the patch, it comes out fine. So I'll show the other view. I just want to highlight the new cards. So Firebending Student here. It's 2 mana, 1/2 Prowess, Firebending X, where X is its power. So when it attacks, you add red mana to your mana pool equal to its Firebending. That mana can only be spent during your combat step. So you lose mana. So you have to kind of play instants. You have Firebender's Ascension, which creates a 2/2 soldier with Firebending 1. And then whenever you attacking triggers put a counter on it. When you have 4 more counters, you get to copy those attack triggers. So you copy your Firebending, so you get extra mana that way there. I played Grease Wrench Goblin just as a way to kind of loot through the deck. You can play the 1 mana Goblin that mobilizes. You can play anything that has like attack triggers. Hired Claw, you get 2 triggers once Firebrand's going with the ping that was useful. It has the mana sink, so you can pump mana into it. So I was looking for things in the deck that you can pump mana into. So with the deck here, you have Burst Lightning for removal, Turn Inside Out, Opera Love Song, and Seek the Beast both can be card advantage, lets you find more stuff. And then I was trying out Generous Plunder in here. So it's another card that, beginning of your upkeep, it helps you ramp so you can play fewer lands. It lets you cast more spells, and then you get to double ping your opponents for damage based on the number of artifacts they control. So it can add up damage pretty well. It's also got Menace, which is just useful in terms of evasion. And kind of the big play is you could generate a whole bunch of mana, and then you can use Great Train Heist. So you can untap all creatures you control, get an extra combat. So especially if you're doubling up triggers, you can basically quad the triggers since you get 2 combat steps. And then you also get +1 and first strike. This deck's pretty explosive on some of the turns it goes off. So there's that. So John Ramos in best of 3 just got Mythic. He's one of the members of my community. Posted my Discord, posted on Twitter. So 4-1 with this. But another one just looking Boros deck with the Ascension. So this one here, again, I don't know why it's popping up like this. So more creature focus as opposed to spells. Stadium Headliner makes you 2 mobilized tokens. Hired Claw. Seasoned Warren Guard gets 2 power boosts in terms of its power. Arabella gets 2 drains. Inti gets 2 discards. Voice of Victory just mobilizes twice. Sanguine's double Lord effect. And then Suki, Courageous Rescuer. And like a Lord for your team. And then whenever another permanent you control leaves the battlefield during your turn, you create an ally. So it gives you kind of a value play that way as well. So just kind of Boros aggro, Sunspine for greedier mana bases, Chandra for every removal, Halia and the aggressive mirrors, split up with sweepers, Graveyard Hate, and then a smattering of removal. And then lastly, another take of Izzet. This one's from Shahar Shenhar. So this 4-0 looks like he was also trying out some versions first with the Firebending Student, Great Train Heist like we were doing in Mono Red. Went with, in the end, just more of a traditional kind of prowess. Astrologians, Planisphere, Draycatchers, Quantum Rulers on the top end. So just kind of value play, a lot of cheap cantrips. Boomerang Basics is one of the new cards. Just return an online permanent to its owner's hand. If it's a permanent you control, you draw a card. Works nicely with like Storm Chaser's Talent or the Planisphere. So it gives basically a loop that you can get that extra value, gain you life. It does have the downside, it's not instant speed, unlike Flood Maw, so you can't target your opponent's stuff at instant speed, but does have some value there. You can also, for example, like Riddler with Warp and then pick it up for 3 mana, draw 2 to 3 cards, which is pretty good. That's mixed into there. Sideboard, Ghost Vacuums, Graveyard Hate, Fire Magics, Detect Intrusion, Obliterating Bolts, for some more removal, so some sweepers, activate abilities, and then Ral for the grindier matchups. Like I said, that's it early on. That's what I was able to find. We'll be back with like the full stats. Hopefully Untap gets a refresh by then. Just given that earlier outage today, a lot of sites are still kind of catching up. Even just trying to load MTGO stuff was really slow. So thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one and happy Avatar set.